Foxes and hens. Emotions, it seems, were running high for Jesus and for those who were close to him. In the span of 5 short verses here, Jesus goes from an ominous, strong warning to a passionate and expressive lament for those who are listening. It's the season of Lent, the time in our church year when once again we journey with Jesus to the cross. These Sunday mornings of Lent this year, we're looking at some of the stories of Jesus as he makes his journey toward Jerusalem. In this account we read this morning, we catch a glimpse of just how important this journey was for Jesus then, and still is for us today. Our passage opens with some Pharisees coming to Jesus to warn him. Generally, in the Gospels, the Pharisees are cast in a negative light, seen as trying to trap or otherwise harm Jesus. We don't know for sure what's going on here. Maybe they are truly trying to help Jesus, or maybe they are Herod's minions trying to get more evidence against him. Herod, though, on the other hand, is never seen as one with good intentions. From the beginning of Luke's Gospel, with Mary's words foretelling Jesus' ministry at the time of his conception, Herod is always evil. We get that right away. Jesus responds aggressively to the mention of Herod. "Go tell that fox for me." This is kind of surprising, isn't it? Jesus does not usually resort to name calling. The message here is clear. Herod, or any of the powers he represents, are not in control. God is in control. Jesus says, "Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the 3rd day I finish my work." End of discussion. This is what I do. This is why I am here. Presbyterian pastor Jill Duffield, in her comments on this passage, wrote, "The ones who think they are calling the shots aren't. And in fact, they are going to be put to use by the one truly in charge of the plot. But Jesus is Jesus is Jesus, on a mission, unstoppable and unwilling to stray from the vision he set out in that first sermon in Nazareth. He will bring good news to the poor, proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, and freedom to the oppressed. The scripture will be, has been, fulfilled, no matter how the rest of the cast responds. Jesus will finish what he has begun." In his next breath, Jesus turns to compassion, sorrow, and grief. The challenges to his ministry and mission come not only from Herod out there. Although there are feminine images of God throughout Scripture, this is the only time we hear Jesus use a feminine image for himself. It is a beautiful image and a powerful one. A hen drawing her young to herself, using her body to shield her children from the harsh realities of life. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. And yet, how often I have desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you are not willing. Despite your bad choices, your self-destructive ways, still I give myself for you. I desire you. Jesus' message, Jesus' ministry is and will be challenged both from outside, the powers of the world, Herod and all that he represents, and in, his beloved, those who profess to believe as he believes and live as he lives. On the second Sunday of Lent, as we move a few steps closer to the cross, I hear in this story 2 things. First, that the journey's not easy. For Jesus, remember, this journey is to the place called the skull, Golgotha. And second, that the journey, as difficult as it will not be thwarted. I find this passage to be a one. As I said, it seems to be full of emotion. Jesus' emotion particularly. First, the name calling, and then there are several references here to Jesus' death on the cross. On the third day I will finish my work. It's impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, biblical scholars, at least some of them, see here in this passage, with the presence of these heavy references here by Jesus to his own death, they see here an opportunity to discuss the doctrine of the atonement. Sometimes I think that I could easily become a theology nerd because I enjoy deep conversations about theological terms that don't generally come up in our everyday conversation. This week, the study of this text took me off in the direction of one of these mental meanderings about atonement. I'm going to ask you to indulge me for just a moment this morning as I talk about it some. And maybe at some future time we'll have some dialogue on atonement or some of these other big theological words. The doctrine of the atonement is essentially the study of why the cross. Why this journey? Atonement in the strict Webster Dictionary understanding is satisfaction or reparation for a wrong or injury. In our Christian theological world, it's the doctrine concerning the reconciliation of God and humankind, especially as that reconciliation is accomplished through the life, suffering, and death of Jesus Christ. Now, I want to say first and fundamentally that I believe the doctrine of the atonement, or the answer to the why the cross question, is a mystery. And that is a good thing. It's not yours or my truth to contain or explain or control. No easy answers. I think we are meant to always wonder and consider why Jesus went to the cross and what his going means for us and for our lives, our world. Given the understanding that the answer to the why the cross question is a mystery, though, a theologian I read recently suggested considering responses to that question through three lenses: forgiveness, inspiration, and revelation. A summary, in a nutshell, of these three understandings is as follows, and they are not mutually exclusive. One may fit for us at one time in our lives, and another may answer that question for us on our faith journeys at another time. At another time. The theologian writes, at one point in life's journey, a Christian may ache for an understanding of Jesus' death that offers a grace radical enough to forgive what may seem unforgivable. The cross as an act of forgiveness. At another time, a believer may find inspiration in the courage that led Jesus to the cross. The cross as inspiration for the challenges of a life of faith. And in another circumstance, in the midst of suffering, Christians have been comforted by the cross' revolutionary and revelatory declaration that God is not aloof from our pain, loss, and disorientation, but that God somehow suffers with us. The cross as comfort for our deepest pains. We are not alone. One or other of these lenses, forgiveness, inspiration, revelation, regarding Jesus' journey to the cross may click for you at this time in your faith journey. Or maybe it holds a different meaning altogether for you right now. That's the mystery. We will never fully wrap our minds around it, but it is profound and powerful. It is a profound and powerful truth of our faith as well. Jesus' death on the cross will always have meaning for us as Christians. When I returned to my reflections on this text for this sermon this morning, however, I was struck not so much by the verses, about what the verses say about the cross, but rather by what they say about the journey. The cross is coming. Life will happen. Jesus knew it. We know it. But that's not what Jesus is about here. Rather, he's about his ministry, and not Herod, not beloved yet rebellious people, Not anyone or anything will stop him. That reading from Genesis, that is our suggested Old Testament reading for this morning, which Barb read, in a way illustrates, confirms this truth. Duffield says it well. It doesn't matter how dire circumstances seem, how impossible the odds, how inevitable one outcome appears. God will have God's way. Barrenness and old age, so what? Landless, wandering nomad, not a problem. Terrifying darkness, not to the one for whom darkness is as bright as day. 400 years of oppression doesn't end the promise or mark the covenant null and void. Corrupt, self-serving religious leaders, they come and go. Power-hungry government officials, a frequent blip on the divine radar. Stiff-necked people who turn their backs on the one who made them and claimed them. If I had a dime for every time that happened, tell those foxes, everyone, their day is coming. Justice will roll down like waters. Evil will be defeated, and death will be no more. The journey will be hard, but God will not be thwarted. Jesus is Jesus is Jesus. Foxes and hens, anger, grief, frustration, our own chaos, illness, worry, fear, uncertainty. No, the journey is not easy, but nothing we can do can thwart the love of God that has come to save us. Nothing. Why the cross? It's a mystery, and comfort, and challenge, and charge. On this second Sunday of Lent, may we continue our journeys, proclaiming that mystery, that life-transforming love with our own lives. Amen.